All right, welcome to the Real Estate Life podcast. On this podcast, we are dedicated to creating a life of passive income through real estate and doing something that we love along the way. Today on the show, I have Alejandro Gonzalez. He is a full-time multifamily broker with Marcus Millichap. He is an expert in the business of buying and selling multifamilies in South Florida, specifically in Miami. We have done transactions together in multifamilies. And the reason why I wanted to bring Alejandro to the show is because the way he conducted himself in the transactions, he was a professional. He understood the business. He was very educated in his submarket and in multi-families. So he had the perspective of a seller and a buyer, and he knew how to maneuver the transaction and made it happen on multiple deals. So when I saw that, I got to have him on my show. Alejandro has sold over 140 million multifamilies in sales, has sold over 1,700 units since 2013. He is part of a team of Marcus Millichap that has $6 billion in commercial sales. I mean, the reputation of Marcus Millichap is well known. Alejandro, welcome to the show.
Hi, Abiel. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So Alejandro, I would like the listeners to get a little bit of background on who you are and how you got started into real estate, and give them a little bit of feedback how all this happened.
Absolutely. I'm from Venezuela. I moved in 2008 to the United States. Prior to moving to the States, I started my real estate career with my dad. We were developing with landowners. We still own land in Venezuela, in Valencia, and we started developing our own land. Doing the master plans, so started developing small single-family communities and small garden-style apartment buildings. In 2008, I moved here, went to Gainesville. I learned English for about a year, and then I applied for the Master of Science in Real Estate at UF. And then I came down here in 2011, and it was presented to me the opportunity to start as a real estate agent in Marcus Millichap, and I've been at the firm since then.
And Marcus Millichap does all types of different commercial types of property. I know that that's their focus: retail, office, multifamilies, and so on. But why did you choose specifically multifamilies as your path? And the reason why I asked that, because I've taken so many different paths in my real estate career. I went from flipping houses when I was 24 years old. Then I went into a traditional realtor. I did the first time home buyers, showing them their single family homes. Mm. And then I gradually went from just working with investors on flips. And now I'm full blown multifamily investor. How come you skipped all this? How did you go straight into multifamily? How did you figure it out so fast?
Well, first, on the commercial side, because commercial would be multifamily, retail, hospitality, or single tenant, and industrial. Part of it was doing the masters in real estate. It was 100% focused on the commercial side and the capital market side. So I came with that background from the masters. And when I had the opportunity with Marcus Millichap, you interview. So the process is you interview with multiple agents. You're an agent candidate when you start, but you don't know a product type per se. I didn't have any opinion to one or the other. I knew how to underwrite any single property type, and I had a good relationship and I had a good first understanding with Felipe that ended up being my mentor, and he specializes in multifamily. So you ended up with the agent or your mentor that you get paired with, that's kind of the product type that you're doing. You also, like, if somebody, but they don't obligate you to do any product type, you can choose, but I was very open-minded at that time. And the only thing that I will share with you is, like, I didn't want to go into residential. Like, I give prompts to the people because I cannot understand losing a transaction because somebody didn't like a kitchen or something like that.
Yeah.
It's the commercial side. It is very difficult. It's almost, I believe it's probably the same things. You run into the same issues on the residential side, but at least it's a little bit more objective with, because you're selling a number, you're selling a business, and you're
Income
selling a
base.
return.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's why the only thing that I knew is like not residential. Like
Yeah.
it was straight commercial, and that's pretty much
Yeah.
how I ended up.
Yeah. You mentioned something that reminds me. And I remember I used to sell when I used to show houses. I would have a list of 7 houses to show a family, and I would show the first 2 really excited because I knew they were the best deals. They were below market. Those were the right properties, and I would show them excited. And they go, "No, we want to see 5, 6 more properties." I'm like, "Hold on, those are the 2 best ones right now. You're gonna get a steal there." And then by the time I got back to that property, it was gone. So it was frustrating on the residential side, but I do get it. Multifamily in the commercial business, you're dealing with people that it's a number-based business. If the numbers make sense, the deal probably makes sense. So I understand that state of mind. So that's how slowly but surely you started going into. And you mentioned something about mentors and having a mentor. I they're not easy to find. So you've been now with Felipe now for quite a few years. Is that correct?
Yes, I first of all I started as a mentee working for him, and I did it for a little bit over a year, and just learning the process. I wasn't even my English was I wasn't fluent. Like I came to grad school, but it's just practice.
Yeah.
So it took me a little longer, but it was great because I really learned the business just working and assisting him and drafting contracts, getting all the due diligence when we go under contract, following up the transaction and everything. So when I roll into as an agent in 2013, it was, I mean, I knew exactly what I needed to do. It's just a matter of, get exposure into transactions.
Yeah.
And that's critical. It is, it is critical for a new agent to have somebody uh, to seek support or somebody that shows you what you need to do. Not everybody is a good mentor, but it is so your future depends a lot on the kind of mentor that you have.
Yeah.
I am being blessed to have Felipe and now to be part of the Crystal Group, which is Evan and Brandon. We have juniors agents as well, and Nick McAndrew and Ray Katina that they work in also with us, and happily and very thankful to be the part of the #1 team in South Florida for Marcus Millichap.
I want to mention something that a lot of buyers take for granted when they're going to interact for the first time, or they want to jump into the market and buy a multifamily. And I say this because I've been in your side and I know what it is to go after a lead and follow up and stay in front of a property or a seller for years. That relationship, that cold call, that relationship, that follow up, that underwriting, all those hours of basically free underwriting that you do a lot for these clients to be able to, at one point, sell their property. That type of work that goes into getting a listing or getting a property. So when a buyer decides that they are going to engage with a professional broker, a lot of them don't know about all this that goes behind the scene and all the work that goes into it. And they just assume like, hey, I just want to make an offer on that property. No, it doesn't work like that. So give the listeners that are interested in engaging with a broker or engaging with you, Alejandro, what do they need to be prepared and ready to not waste your time and for them to really have an idea what it really takes to get a property from you, and kind of walk them through that process and what they should be doing and not doing?
I'll put it to you in this way. When when you carry inventory, obviously you start like getting the calls from buyers. I I started like I make very simple. I make them very like simple questions. It will be and as simple as, hey, how many units are you looking for, and what specific geographic area are you interested in? Because most of the people say Miami, but I was like, okay, can you tell me a little bit more? Because Miami, do you want to be in Miami Beach or you want to be in Liberty City? Um, so, and now I started to see, I never gonna say no to work with anyone, but I also started like going through a series of questions to see how ready they are, and maybe I will start making recommendations. The one thing that I almost is a pet peeve of that I have is when the buyers say, just send me a deal that makes sense. It's like, you're telling me that you don't know what you're looking for, or you're looking for a low-hanging fruit that is an absolutely impossible to find in Miami-Dade nowadays.
I know exactly what you're saying.
And yes, so it's just a few questions there. I'll give you an example. Now I've been working with a few buyers from California, and when you actually now listen, I have and they share with you is not an issue. It's a matter of like establishing a good rapport. It was like, listen, Alejandro, I'm on a 1031 exchange. I have $1.5 million. I am under contract. I'm closing in 2 weeks. Immediately, I know, okay, this guy is real and he's serious, and there is a need. So you have to, in my end, I will like separate which is probable or which are the real buyers, but it just be very granular for buyers to know what they're looking for because they can get lost.
And yeah, I've been there. I've been that buyer. I've been that buyer that has done that. And I think that the word that I always preach, and it's a word that I constantly repeat to myself, is clarity. Like, you need to have complete clarity of what you want. What product do I want? What market do I want to be in? What type of financing? How much capital can I count on? That type of clarity is what makes your life easier and will actually speed up the process. And buyers go through that all the time. I change my clarity all the time. But let me tell you, when I actually did find it and I knew exactly what that was, all the noise went away, and I would just laser focus on the exact product that we wanted. And I could talk to a broker like you and say, I want this specific product. What do you have? And if
And
you don't have it, please send it to me when you do have it. And that sticks with you because you keep it like, I know this group is ready to buy this if I got that product. And that's kind of what you.
absolutely. And so when you start that relationship, I don't expect much at the beginning. The only thing that I always ask is just give me feedback. If they say, send me everything that you have, it's like, well, I have 50 listings, not all of them with my team and I. So not all of them are going to fit. So please, I'm going to send you a couple. Okay, you want between 10 and 20 units. Perfect. I'm going to send you 3. Give me feedback. Drive by the buildings. Tell me if you like it or not.
Yeah.
So the buyers that give me feedback, that it automatically sends a signal to any agent that says, well, there's motivation here. It might take a year. In fact, I can tell you stories that I closed on a transaction with a buyer that it took us almost 3 years to find a property.
Yeah, yeah.
But I never get tired because I knew it was just a matter of time. And nowadays, the market, how it is, with such a lack of inventory,
Yeah.
it's just a matter of stay focused on what you're looking and just be patient.
Very.
There's plenty of people with multiple, like millions of dollars in a bank account, not being able to find the inventory that they're looking for.
Yeah, yeah. You have to be patient. This is a patient business, but you also have to be consistent and aggressive, constantly looking. And sometimes as a buyer, that we don't have the access to inventory or we just haven't done the legwork that you've done on the cold calling and the follow-up and the prospecting, because we're out there raising money, we're getting properties, we're monitoring operations. So it's a team effort. Without a good broker on your team, we won't be able to get the deals that we get. I want to start with all right. So I'm ready to sell my apartment building, Alejandro, and what do I need to look for to engage a good broker? Someone that I know is going to hold my hand, is going to underwrite my deal and put it accurate in the market. What do you suggest I do? Put yourself in my shoes, and I'm looking for a broker to sell my asset.
Be open, interview at least 2 or 3 or even 4. Ideally will be brokers that you have a relationship, so you can actually know that will be looking for your own interests and not a full, complete transactional. They don't care about you at all. They just want the paycheck. So if you don't have that, then you have to interview 3 or 4. If you have 2 relationships, see the ones that are, well, if I put myself in the shoes, I would like somebody that absolutely specializes in one product type only.
I agree.
I don't want anyone a jack of all trades. I don't want a guy that's like he's jumping around from like Broward County to Miami-Dade and then like has a listing in Polk County. That will be first. Also, that's on the broker side. Like, just don't be afraid and tell them, like, you're interviewing with multiple people.
Yeah.
Also, when you're ready to sell a property, sometimes people think they're ready. They not really are. They might be getting like a bad month with a few tenants, and they're like, I'm throwing the towel. But at the end of the day, if they actually do their due diligence, my first question when somebody calls me or we're talking for multiple years and say, Alejandro, I think I'm ready. And I say, why? Why are you going to sell your building?
Yeah.
Also, the number one issue that I've been seeing now with sellers that have owned the property for generations is capital gains. They have to, and as a broker, it is almost like one of the most important questions to ask. Have you checked with your accountant? I cannot tell you how many times you get to listing under contract and then, let me check with my accountant because I have a figure in mind. And then they want to cancel the transaction and they're not able to.
Yeah, the hits is too big. It's shocking to them. And it's scary because it from the rumors I'm hearing, they're trying to remove the 1031 exchange in the next couple of years. So we're not going to get into that subject, but that would be a game changer for the business also.
Yeah,
those are the rumors. So Alejandro, I want to go straight to the trends that we're seeing in multifamilies. I know that I'm seeing them already. I do see the lack of inventory, but I'm also seeing opportunities. I'm seeing opportunities on distressed assets, poorly managed assets. If your asset was poorly managed or even average managed, and COVID got you, you just went from average to poor. If you went from poor, you went to extremely poor, you're in trouble. It's just because of the stress, COVID is putting on tenants, delinquencies, on the business. What trends are you seeing now in 2021 and going forward in the multifamily business?
First of all, I think we're really blessed to be on the multifamily sector. The multifamily has been among the few asset classes that are remain the most stable, along with single tenant and industrial. The main concern going into COVID, and I remember very clearly, vividly, and let's go back 12 months, literally 12 months, March 16, everybody's like, how are going to be collections? what are we gonna do? So everybody went into a freeze moment for a few weeks, but then starting to like just communicating with the tenants, start immediately communicating with tenants, start sending letters. I was just, I was um, just trying to communicate what I was hearing from one owner to another to just the flow of information. I went from being a broker and trying to, do transactions to absolutely being just there for our clients and ask them, what are you doing? I hear that there's the property owners start sending letters and they're actually helping to apply for PPP loans or any uh, any aid from the government. So that was one of the trends at the beginning. Then we went for like 2 months of zero transaction. And after that, kind of everything started to came back slowly. The one thing that helped us to remain stable and the prices to remain stable was the capital markets. It was constant flow of capital from the lenders. That literally what helped the multifamily sector. The banks never stopped lending, even though multiple people thought about it or heard about it. I don't know why or how. The banks, they were there. They changed their requirements,
Yep.
but they were always open to lend.
Yeah, it became a little bit more difficult. That reserve, that 1 year reserve hold was challenging. It bothered me at first, but the rates are so amazing that it's a no-brainer. If you lock down the rates that we're locking down now, with the inflation that's happening, it's getting debt right now. It's the smartest thing to do. Appropriate debt on the right asset, of course. Um, Alejandro, in your sub market, let's be specific, as you mentioned something earlier that you talk about going to a broker that's a professional and that it has their expertise in one specific product, and that's what you. I know that's what you have in Miami, and I know your sub markets very well. Um, in your sub market in Miami, one of them is Little Havana, where I shared apartments in that community. Do you see those Class C buildings, the rents increasing? Or do you see Miami's rents increasing, stabilizing? What trend are you seeing?
So there's no one answer. What I would share with you that the different trends that I've been seeing is it it narrows. You have to narrow it down to landlord specific. I have experience and have stable relationships with landlords that owns, let's say, 1920s building, but they completely rehab those 1920s buildings in Little Havana with no parking, and they are able to remain 100% occupied. They're able to have top of the market rent, and they have a list of people that they a list of tenants ready to rent one of their units. On the other side, I literally see the owner next door with a for rent sign and not being able to rent a unit for 3 months.
Yeah.
It is absolutely amazing to see it, but it comes down. So gentrification in Little Havana has become so big that now it's just a matter of which landlord is offering the best unit.
Yeah.
It is, so the rents are high. So now the tenants are okay. Well, if I'm gonna pay this amount of rent, I might as well pay it to somebody that offered me a clean unit and a nice product.
And it's so
Not
true.
necessarily like with parking or no parking, because the no parking has been there since forever. It's the same thing as Miami Beach. But so Little Havana, I think it's more positive than negative. The rents are going to continue to move on an upward trend, but also it is a product of the the amount of improvement that a landlord puts on his unit.
Yeah, I agree
I've
with
seen,
I agree with you
yeah,
on the gentrification because I went from seeing a certain tenant base in my properties, and within the last year, my tenant base has changed. It's younger, a younger hipster crowd coming in, if you want to call it, which I didn't see before in Little Havana. There's a ton of Airbnb going on that I think is attracting certain tenants to say, you know what, I think I could live in this little sub market here. They come, they visit, they get a good deal for holidays, and then they decide that okay, this is a spot where I'm going to stay because I do see a lot of Airbnb going on there in there because of the location.
correct.
Yeah, because of the
You
location.
see, you see the different changes, and I drive, even though I'm based in Fort Lauderdale, I cover Miami-Dade. I'm in Miami-Dade, and I'm driving my markets 2 or 3 times a week. You see the changes, not only in the number of projects, you see when every time that you see a person running in that neighborhood, that it's a good sign. Like the tenant is younger, the tenant takes care of their, their fitness. And also it means like the area is safe.
I never
You don't
thought
see
about
people
that.
running
So, hold on. I have to go back to that. So when you actually see people jogging in a neighborhood, that means it's getting better. That's pretty cool.
absolutely.
I never thought about that.
Yes, absolutely. It means that it's
That's
safe,
awesome.
that nobody is gonna
Yeah.
like, rob you. And the tenant it's younger, as you're saying, and it's better tenant. They want to live in a clean environment. It's just that is a
But
good sign.
it depends what type of running they're doing.
No, yeah, exactly. You see somebody running in overtown, that
Yeah,
might
yeah.
be a different story. But
I get what you're saying. It's true. I used to use Starbucks as my underwriting tool. I would always look for properties around Starbucks because Starbucks already did all the homework for me. That's a whole other podcast. But
right,
sometimes if you don't have the means to do too much underwriting, just follow where there's certain brands opening up. You know, Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts. If they're opening up in a neighborhood, there's a good sign that there's something
or
good.
even employers.
Employers, correct?
Employers, you have it like so. Little Havana is the epicenter of everything, in Alapata too. Because what do you have nearby? You have on the east side, you have the port. North, you have the hospital civic area where you have the Jackson Memorial, you have the hospital, you have the courthouse. To south, you have also Coconut Grove, and to the west, you have the airport.
And
So you have major employers in all surrounding areas. So that is,
yeah,
I mean,
and not to
what you
mention
need for multifamily.
all the hospitality we have. Yeah, I agree.
Correct.
Now, let's talk about what is the most difficult or transaction that always sticks with you that really gave you an education on it. Tell me about the most difficult transaction you did and how did you resolve that problem. That way, me or the listeners could learn from that and not make the same mistakes. So many,
There's always
so many,
so
so
every
many,
every.
so many. They're all difficult.
I was gonna say almost every single transaction involves a credit,
Yeah.
involve some type of concession. I would say to you this: problems don't kill deals, surprises. So typically, when I most of the time I'm a listing agent. That's the way that's the model of Marcus Millichap is that the way that we do business. We focus on getting the inventory, securing the inventory. So, given what I just said, that surprises kill deals, you just need to get ahead and mitigate before it just pop up something like, listen, there's the roof needs to be changed. You need to get ahead. So I have to do due diligence ahead of time and a very good due diligence. And not panic. It's difficult because every single buyer, every single seller is different. So they will react in different ways. Just try to make them see that it's not the end of the world if something happens. If you're really going ahead, like running out of time, request an extension and the inspection. and try to work with both sides. I will tell you, when it gets difficult and gets to a point that you cannot do anything, and when buyer or seller or both are not listening to the facts. When you tell a seller, listen, your building, we did an inspection and your building has the plumbing like completely broken, and he doesn't think and he's not willing to do a credit, that is a major issue. And it's something that
I
needs
think
to be addressed.
I think me and you have had that same conversation you just said right now.
It just
it might have been in those same words, right?
yeah.
The transparency is important. I think me that I participate as a seller in a few transactions and as a buyer, that transparency, when a broker is transparent and honest, it just makes the deal so much better. And I'm not saying I see this all the time on underwriting and marketing packages, and brokers are experienced brokers will leave out so much information sometimes that I'm like, come on, why are you gonna make me dig in so deep and hard when like this is obvious information? So I agree with you. Transparency between the sellers and the buyers is it's hard sometimes because sometimes one is not that cooperative. So you got to try to mitigate that to make it work. So I understand what it goes into that. Alejandro, so what advice would you give a listener? Let's say a listener wants to transition from being an investor and go into working as a broker and working with a team like the team that you have, or getting a mentor. What advice would you give that listener that wants to get into starting into multifamilies and being a broker?
I mean, you're in a great, like, first of all, the multifamily, it's a great airspace to be with. So it's one of the product types that potentially could give you or lead you to a paycheck the fast. The main advice will be have enough savings for at least a year, because it's difficult. You're literally starting a business from scratch. I will tell you, I started when I started, and here in M&M, the first 3 months were building my own database. I drove street by street, avenue by avenue, in Little Havana. I took every single picture of all the properties, and then went and download all the tax records, input it into my database, and research every single owner. So it takes a while. But there's so many people that their turnover is very high, because I think people set in their mind, even though in Marcus Millichap we tell you exactly what you need to do, and if you follow it, you will succeed, because I'm proof of it, and all of my agents and my mentors are proof of it. I think they set the wrong expectations and say, well, I'm going to give it a year, I'm going to give it a try. You just have enough savings for at least a year, or just take a second job. I took a second job in my first year. I was delivering pizza. But have the savings and just do the work. And every story is different.
Yeah, I agree with you on the savings. In fact, I like that you said a year, because I preach 6 months. So you're double what I say, but 6 months in commercial might not be enough. You're right. Transactions in commercials, they could take long to close. So I agree with you on that.
I mean, let's say you day one you have database ready, and then so you're gonna start calling, and then let's say you got lucky and got a BOV on the first month and a half. The first month and a half, then it's gonna take another month to get listed. After you get listed, it's taken like a few more weeks to put it in the market. Then the marketing process another 45 days. We're already past 6 months. So it takes time. Our sales cycle is long.
That's true. That's very true. And
so
it's
I mean, be patient. You're starting something from scratch.
The beginning, you said it's starting your own business. So not too many. When you're starting your own business, it does take, any type of business does take a while to establish it. So that's a good way of putting it. Establish. So the advice is you're opening up your own business. If you have that mentality, then you're gonna understand that it could take up to a year before you see your first paycheck. So that is
And you
very
need to take it,
yeah, yeah.
and, and you need to take it seriously. It's literally like, okay, this is my business, and have your own goals and follow them. Because if you want to do the broker lifestyle, then that's different. You're gonna do 1 or 2 transactions a year, and that's it.
We have a I want to close it out with a question, and it's a question I ask all my listeners, and I always get different answers from every listener. And my
Mhm.
question is, what does financial freedom mean to you, Alejandro? When you envision yourself financially free, what is it that you envision?
Well, let's keep it in the multifamily area. Financial freedom for me will be owning 100+ units free and clear. That's very important, because from that same business and from that same cash flow, you can continue acquiring 8 to 10 units every year from your own business. To me will be financial freedom, owning 100+ units free and clear.
So you're working on that goal.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Alejandro, man, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. There was a lot of stuff that you dropped here that I actually refreshed my memory, and they're good learning lessons. I hope the listeners uh, got a lot from this podcast, and I appreciate your time. And stay with me on the call because I know we got some stuff to go over.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you so much for the invitation.
Thank you.